Well, let's take you back to 2007 when Pravin Gordhan was a SARS commissioner. He addressed a memorandum to then Finance Minister Trevor Manuel seeking approval to fund an intelligence unit inside the NIA in support of SARS. The Commission's so-called spy unit was established that same year, and during the Hawks investigation into the unit, Gordhan maintained he had Manuel's approval. Well, we talk to the former Finance Minister now and get his thoughts on this ongoing saga. Mr. Manuel, it's great to have you this evening. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And I think one of the first questions would be just sift through all of this noise and the political debris, and from your vantage point, tell us what you really think is at stake here, at issue.
Look,
here.
I think that the basic issue is the present. And in the present, a few months ago, the Hawks had threatened Minister Gordhan again. And I was one of the people, apparently, that they would inquire into as well. But the focus was on Minister Gordhan, Ivan Pillay, Pete Richer, and so on. And at that stage, for whatever reason, they decided to abandon it. Now, this week, the fresh letter, the requirement that Minister Gordhan present himself at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and he has now decided that he won't go, correctly so. But I think that there's something quite fundamental about this issue. You see, we must go back to the 31st of March this year, when the Constitutional Court made a very important finding in relation to Nkandla as it happens. And it found that the President had violated his oath of office and that Parliament had failed in its core mandate, and that is to oversee the executive function. And in respect of the oath of office of the President, it's about advancing the interests of the Republic, and the Republic's interests are spelt out in the Constitution. Now, there's a chapter that deals with cooperative governance. It defines the relations between various organs of state and how they must relate to each other. The idea that a part of the police can go public and go rogue, for that matter, and decide to call a minister and order him around is unseemly in the context of our Constitution. And the fact that this is allowed to happen suggests that, as the court found on the 31st of March, somebody is not actually doing his job in holding the agencies together.
So you're saying a unit inside the Hawks has gone rogue? They're doing this independently?
No, I'm not saying a unit inside the Hawks. I'm saying the fact that General Klimeza can make these announcements, make pronouncements about ministers, as though these are ordinary criminals in the street, rather than recognizing the unity of the state as required by the Constitution, is part of the problem. People do exactly as they please. Yesterday, the chief operating officer of the public broadcaster goes to Parliament and he says, I don't want to account to you. And Parliament says, well, okay. You can't have the unity of the state in a constitutional order, have people who are effectively public servants behave in this way.
Ultimately, if accountability is meant to be determined and culpability is meant to be ascribed, and as you say, these are important officers of state, what is the ideal way that if there has been a wrong done, that it should be remedied in this context? In an
ideal situation, the President would convene the parties, have the issues placed before him. It's not the same as interfering. It's not the same as saying, well, please don't investigate the minister. You must find a constitutional and correct way of doing it. What's happening at the moment is just unseemly, and that's what I think drags all of government through the mud.
And unseemly is one thing, Mr. Manuel, but conspiracy is something else. And analysts that we've been speaking to are reading this in a whole political theatre of politics, which is basically placing Mr. Gordhan as a target of government for various different reasons. Do you read it in a similar way?
There is no other way to read it. I mean, let's play back to the 9th of December last year. There was a cabinet meeting. The Minister of Finance was making a presentation on the state of the economy. They adjourned to reconvene a few days later. That evening, the Minister of Finance is called by the President and dismissed. We're not talking about the conduct then, it was the dismissal of a very competent, diligent, honest and upright citizen, Nhlanhla Nene. Pravin Gordhan was brought in late into the day. He didn't say, I want this job because I had it before. He was brought in on the request of the President. He was assigned that. He was sworn in as Finance Minister. He's presented the budget since then. He's active in trying to hold the credit rating for the country. He's supported by business. The President is aware of all of this. The President has met business people along with Minister Gordhan twice this year, as far as I know from public records. So there's a job of work to be done. You know, there's a play on the international markets, and a large delegation of South Africans will be going to New York next month. There's the annual meetings of the IMF. And there's a medium-term budget policy statement to be presented in October. All of this is work that is ongoing right now in the cycle. I'm sure the Minister of Finance would be involved with crafting the budget for next year. You can't play loose and fast with a minister who has the kind of responsibility that the Minister of Finance has in South Africa. And I think that the President has a constitutional responsibility to support and defend the minister and try and deal with the issue so that the minister isn't pulled from one direction to the next by people who are actually just public servants in acting positions as it happens.
The argument outlining the precarious situation of our economy has been well established, both of what the IMF had to say, what the Reserve Bank governor had to say in terms of our growth prospects, the fact that we're facing a credit review. Some would say, you know, some who are saying it might be that those decisions might be accelerated and be given even before December. So that's on the one hand. But if we telescope back and go into the realm of political targeting and this conspiracy, how do you understand that? What is the anatomy of that conspiracy? For South Africans who are sitting back and saying, you know, is this about the President's moves to have oversight and control over state-owned enterprises? What is this political conspiracy really about from where you sit and based on what you know, Mr. Manuel?
Look, there have been some very strange decisions. Perhaps the strangest of those was announced by the Minister in the Presidency this week that a new council will be established to oversee all state-owned enterprises. Now, I don't quite understand what the function of that council will be. I know that most state-owned corporates are governed by the Companies Act, and many of them have their own legislation. Already it's a complex arrangement where you have executives in a state-owned company. You have a board sitting above that. That's normal for any company. Above the board you have a minister, sometimes two ministers that must be reported to. You have Parliament entering the equation. And now you place another layer on top of that. I can't see what that layer does. I can't see the coordination between one ministry and the next. But I can say that a different announcement today by the Minister of Transport instructing PRASA to hold off on investigations that at one level appears criminal into the conduct of certain individuals at PRASA before. I don't think that a minister can say, let's call a halt to criminal investigations. That is ongoing. It's based on a report by the Public Protector. Is this tied up with the announcement of Monday that there shouldn't be prosecutions and that people can do exactly as they please? All that the Ministry of Finance has to do is to write a check either for a guarantee or for actual hard cash.
So is this about corruption and money, Mr. Manuel?
Look, I'd hate to suggest that, but I'm running out of ideas in my own mind about what actually motivates the conduct that we're seeing at present.
I must just clear up a few things historically. You were Finance Minister, 2007, the unit was approved. What did you understand their mandate to be, and do you believe in hindsight that they did exactly that? I
believe that you see, I mean, look, in many respects, one gives authority to people, and there has to be good faith in the way in which these things are established. You know, and you expect public servants to act within the letter and spirit of the law, and there was a mandate given for that. It was supported by Cabinet. It was meant to be involved within the intelligence agency, so you didn't have two separate intelligence agencies going at each other. We understood very clearly that you couldn't have a revenue authority acting against people whose intent is dishonesty, going about issues in the normal course, hoping that people would make absolutely honest declarations. You needed to get into the system, and that has been the trend in the world since Al Capone. Follow the money was the message then. It still is very much the message, and we understood that we needed some special measures within the framework of the law. I stand by the fact that that was done within the framework of the law. Since then, it seems as though all kinds of agencies have an interest in one part of what was being investigated, namely the tobacco industry. I don't have any particular knowledge, but I did see a press report last week that even tied in former NIS spy Craig Williamson into the network of people that operate. It just seems like a cesspool of activity that we should get out of. But I don't blanch at the fact that the unit was established within SARS, within the letter and spirit of the law.
I want to know, based on Mr. Gordhan's latest stance to not go, for the fact that he has not, and he was told directly by the head of the Hawks that he was not a suspect in the case, that he's answered all of their questions. Have you spoken to him during this time? Are you in his ear? Are you advising him? And if you're in conversation with him, what are you saying to him? How are you advising him?
I think that the minister is being advised by lawyers, and I know that he takes the time and trouble to ensure that he will act correctly. I don't have any specialist legal knowledge to provide him with. I know that this is a very stressful issue, not just for him, but also for his family and for the people who work with him. But, you know, somebody's got to come clean and say, we're going ahead with it because there is a basis for evidence. This is the evidence you required. I don't believe that the police can just order anybody, least of all a minister, to report at this time, because I don't even know what is in the nature of this order requiring the minister to present himself. I don't know what the legality of any of those issues are, but I do think that in the same spirit as the Constitutional Court spoke on the 31st of March, we must ensure that every organ of state acts within the framework of the law.
You mentioned 9/12, Mr. Manuel, and it was a cataclysmic moment in our economy, for our economy. When you read what's happening with Mr. Gordhan now, side by side with the firing or the letting go of Mr. Nathi in Nhleko, does this have the potential to do more damage? I mean, we saw the rand go to 3-week lows, plunging 3% today. There's some uncertainty in the markets, and again, against the backdrop of this ratings review. Does this have the potential to be more, apologize, beginning with an N, was our finance minister last year, I said the wrong name. Does this have the potential to do as much, if not more damage?
I think it will do much more damage. I think that the world understood that after having appointed Des Van Rooyen for a few days, the minister or the president was actually required by a whole series of interests to appoint Pravin Gordhan as minister. To go back on that and to find somebody else and to lose confidence in Pravin Gordhan is actually to really scream fire in a crowded theatre. Such action will destroy this economy. And you know, there are people who can find their way through the world because they've got the skill set, but the poor will realize that this is the biggest setback in their lives.
Well, one would say that the next move is really up to the Hawks. It depends on how they play this now. We've paraphrased it.
The next move is actually up to the head of state to call them in and say, if you have compelling evidence, let's see what it is. We have to manage this thing in a particular way. We're in a delicate situation. We have the quality of life of all South Africans in our hands. Let's not be completely cavalier about the lives of people.
Before I let you go, at the beginning you said he was absolutely right to take the stance that he is, Mr. Gordhan. If you were advising him right now, I mean, how would you play this?
I would play it in exactly the same way. I think that he's had sound legal advice. He's not required to go there, and I think he's correct in the way in which he's conducting himself.
Mr. Manuel, thank you for your time. We appreciate it this afternoon. Former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel. Well, earlier, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan issued this statement explaining why he will not report to the Hawks tomorrow. Let's listen to his reasons.
I confirm that on 22 August 2016, my attorneys received a letter from the Hawks requesting that I present myself at their offices on 25 August 2016 at 1400 hours in order that a warning statement may be obtained from me. The letter from the Hawks is now made public. I have since taken legal counsel, and my response through my attorneys to the letter by the Hawks, together with my statement, have also been made public. I am advised that I am under no legal obligation to present myself to the Hawks as directed in their letter. I have decided not to do so for the following considerations. 1. I was advised in no uncertain terms by the head of the Hawks, General Ntlemeza, in his letter of 20 May 2016, in response to my attorney's inquiry, that I am not a suspect in the Hawks investigation. 2. I have provided a comprehensive account of matters which the Hawks had raised in their 27 questions on 18 May 2016. 3. I am advised by my legal team that the assertions of law made by the Hawks in their letter of 21 August 2016 are wholly unfounded on any version of the facts. There are 2 matters raised by the Hawks, and these are contraventions of the National Strategic Intelligence Act and of sections of the Public Finance Management Act. These alleged contraventions are dealt with in detail in my attorney's letter, which has also been made public. Suffice it to say, they advise that the alleged charges are wholly unfounded. I therefore do not intend to present myself for a warning statement for many considerations, both legal and given my other commitments. I remain committed to assist the Hawks in any bona fide investigation as stated in my statement. I have a job to do in a difficult economic environment and to serve South Africa as best I can. Let me do my job.
Thanks for joining us on Afternoon News. The Newsnight headlines with Jeremy Maggs at the top of the hour. Of course, extensive analysis on these developments, the twin developments, the new public protector choice by MPs and the decision by the Finance Minister not to appear before the Hawks tomorrow. It's going to be a busy night. Up next, a look at the weather.